So. Good evening, everyone. Today is September 23rd, 2025. It is 7 p.m. and I'm calling to order this meeting of the Richfield City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda. I did want to note one of the council members wants to pull item 7F off the consent calendar, and so when we get to that point, we'll be doing that. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as printed with the exception of pulling item 7F off the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we've approved the agenda. Next, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. It's for City Council work session from September 9th, 2025, and the City Council regular meeting from September 9th, 2025.
I move approval of both sets of minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the minutes. Later this evening, we will be going through the rules of decorum and the rules for council meetings, but for right now, we're sticking with the same rules we've had all along. So I'm going to move on to open forum. At this time, members of the public are invited to address the City Council during open forum. Speakers who have completed a comment card will be called to the podium to speak first. Speakers are asked to state their first and last name, city of residence, and the topic or item they wish to speak on. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to provide their comments. Please note that time may not be transferred or shared with another individual. Open forum is an opportunity for the council to listen to public input. Council members will not respond to questions or comments during this time. However, all remarks will be taken into consideration. The council may direct staff to follow up or take appropriate action as needed. For more information on how to participate or provide public comment, please visit the city's website at www.richfield.mn.gov/city_government/city_council/more_information. So it is intuitive if you go to the website and go to the city government page. Also, to make things a little easier so I don't have to interrupt anybody mid-sentence, I made a sign when you have 30 seconds left that I'll hold up. So it won't show on camera, but then the person that's speaking will be aware of it. And also a sign for time is up. So we'll try and have the 30 minutes. So, did anyone send in any comments ahead of time?
We've received no comments.
All right, so we have 3 cards for people that are here this evening. So I'm going to call Kathleen Balaban to the podium. Thank you.
Oh, I don't have to sign in, I just say something now, right?
If you filled out a card, you don't need to sign in. We're trying to streamline the process. So I'll start the timer once you start talking.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kathleen Balaban. I live in Ridgefield, and I'm a homeowner. And 2 things for tonight. First off, I was going to ask about the consensus calendar F as well, but you guys already talked about that, so I'll leave that one alone because I'd be interested in hearing about that Wood Lake project. The other thing I was going to talk about is I did buy myself the Sturgis Book of Hoyle. I call it the Hoyle because it tells you how to play the game. The first 10 pages, though, are the most important. It talks about procedures, how we run as a democracy, okay? Minutes, it talks about all of these things in here. And as everybody else has a Bible with all their stickers, so it has my Hoyle book. Now, one of the things that it talked about was minutes and commissions and commissioners and charters and our EDA, HRA, and all of those. I'm asking our city to finally put it together and get our commissioners all equal in their websites, that their data is visible, equal, they're standardized to some extent, and that they're detailed. It says so right here in this book of Hoyle, how to play the game. We need to talk about that we don't document our various commissioners' minutes. They're not documented. It says, oh, so-and-so from such and such department gave an update. Well, they're not online. There's no video. There's no audio. I get no update, okay? There's nothing. When you go and look for any appendices or any added data, there's nothing there. So I'm asking for that data because it's in our book. It's also in our state laws. We just haven't followed them. So I'm asking that we do that. I am an active citizen, as you know, and so I'm starting to look these things up again. I got waylaid from some serious family things, but I also noticed, and I'm looking, or you will notice, that I'm looking for your budgets. Our AFR, we don't have it out there yet. According to Minnesota statutes, if we're a accrual-based accounting system, which I think we are, a GAAP, our annual report is supposed to be to them by June 30th of each year. Now, our cash, if we do a cash basis, which we are not, it's due on March 31st. Now, I'm looking for that AFR because I use that to compare 24 to 25, 25 to 17. I look for these comparisons. So I'm asking that it gets out there so that I can look at it as a citizen. And I appreciate the other thing I noticed for your decorum and procedures, because I have to get out of here, I only have 10 seconds left. I appreciate the fact that you have a sergeant of arms. It's about time, you know. We could have used one when Edwina filled in for Maria a few years back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rod Sather.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. I'm Rod Sather, city resident. I'd like to speak about short-term rentals. It seems like the more discussion there is on short-term rentals, the more complicated the situation becomes. In January, there was a city works session on short-term rentals. There was a discussion of banning rentals of less than 30 days. Now the City Council is talking of banning rentals of less than 5 days. 4 weeks ago when I spoke at open forum, I talked about the banning of rentals of less than 7 days. I should have said 5 days. I believe that even if the limit is 5, 4, 3, 2, or even 1 day minimum rental, there are 2 words to describe it: unreasonable and unenforceable. Unreasonable, as some people only get 10 days of annual leave each year. If you require a 5-day minimum stay, the renters are going to be using 1/2 of their annual leave in one fell swoop. Maybe the renters just want a 3-day weekend to attend a football game and a baseball game. If there's just a Monday holiday, they can do that instead of using their annual leave. Unenforceable as to who is going to monitor the short-term rental property owners. Are they following the rules? How are you going to limit the number of short-term rental properties a person or business owns? Does the city of Richfield now limit the number of long-term rental properties a person or business owns? The limits on the number of properties owned should be the same for owners of all rental properties, not just short-term rental properties. The 5-day minimum stay and owning of no more than 2 short-term rental properties, is that an idea that was picked out of thin air, or is that an idea that Other cities also have this restriction. I don't believe that Airbnbs and VRBOs are going to put in their advertisings or their postings that Richfield has a 5-day minimum stay requirement. I would appreciate it if the city council would do what's best for the city of Richfield and its residents. Keep it simple. No rentals of less than 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have a card here for Phil Laurie. Is he here tonight? He was here earlier, but I don't see him in the room. So Mr. Lowry, pause for a minute. Is he outside and heading this way? We can wait a minute. Okay, so we'll just pause and he'll be able to come in. He's heading in the door as we speak, so we'll just wait. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? All right, then try and get Mr. Lowry's attention. All right, so if you could say your first and last name and the city you live in, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Wabesh Kasiwa Getu Amak, Richfield, Minnesota. I've been here twice before. I've been battling this battle for 12 years. We've always lost. For 6 years, we've been trying very desperately to work with the police of Richfield and have them stop the jet-assisted engines, the jet-assisted mufflers of the thug cars that storm up Lindale 20 hours a day from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. In this battle, we found very many very helpful people. Number one, your fire chief. Number two, your Mayor Supple. Number three of your 4 councilmen, not including O'Grady. And by far the most important one is your city clerk, Michelle. On October 11th last year, our building nursing home superintendent, Megan Wubbin, sent a plea letter to Chief Henthorne, desperately asking him to stop these thug cars, making it impossible to sleep anytime between 6 a.m. and 2 a.m. For 11 months now and 12 days, 11 months and 12 days, Chief Henthorne has stubbornly refused to give us the requested written, signed reply to Megan Wubbin's October 11th, 2024 letter. But for 11 months and 12 days, he's stubbornly refused to give any response whatsoever. We asked for a written, signed response. We've gotten nothing. Our efforts over the last 6 years have involved coming here, talking to our Congresswoman, our 2 United States senators. We haven't gotten anywhere. What we've tried is saying, speed up. What we've tried is, see if you can go 100 miles an hour. None of that's helped. We threw rose petals at them once. But now, our communications with this city council and with this police force are terminated. We will never again ask for your help. We're doing it on our own. We tried throwing rose petals. That didn't work. 3 Richfield police officers suggested to us that we should try throwing peanuts at them, because the 3 police officers said peanuts will not get you arrested and they will not damage their car, and who knows, they might help to stop the problem. So starting this Friday, from 6 to 8 p.m. is going to be our first peanut day. We're going to throw peanuts at the thug cars driven by young, drugged, drunk teenagers, young people. For every time that your police force arrests a criminal, a speeder, a drugger, this city council should be thanked for the officers of the police force who are outstanding. But for every time
Your
a
time
thug
has
car
expired, sir.
storms north, or every time a thug car storms north on Lindale between 6 a.m. and 2 a.m., you
Sir,
should be shamed
your
of your
time-
police officer because they're not doing their job. Their job is to protect us, and Chief Henthorne is not protecting us.
Thank you for your comments. Your time has expired. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during open forum? All right. Next, we are going to move on to the consent calendar. There are no proclamations or presentations tonight. We've had a request to pull item 7F from the consent calendar, and so I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Rodriguez to present the consent calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent calendar, item A, approve disbursements and claims. Item B, appoint 2025 election judges for Independent School District 280 school board election. Item C, consider approval of the 2025-2026 emergency preparedness agreement with the City of Bloomington. Item D, consider approval of a lease agreement between the City of Richfield and Spons Automotive, Inc., I don't know if I have that pronounced correctly, for the private use of a portion of city-owned parking lot located north of Diagonal Boulevard and East Cedar Avenue South. Item E, consider approval of a resolution authorizing staff to submit an application for a Hennepin County Play Area grant in the amount of $300,000 for the purchase of new features at the Richfield Outdoor Pool, and authorizing staff to enter into a grant agreement if awarded. Item F has been removed from the consent calendar, and we will consider that after the consent calendar. Item G, consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing acceptance of Office of Traffic Safety funds for an extension of an original 4-year grant to fully fund an officer dedicated to DWI enforcement in Richfield. Item H, consider approval of a resolution authorizing staff to submit an application for a Hennepin County Lifeguard Services grant in the amount of $50,000 to assist with the hiring and retention of lifeguard staff at the Richfield Outdoor Pool, and authorizing staff to enter into a grant agreement if awarded. Item I, consider authorizing the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus units and related equipment for $315,235, with billing scheduled in budget year 2026 from McQueen Emergency Group, and authorize the city manager to approve contract changes up to $275,000 without further city council consideration. And I submit these items for your consideration as part of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the consent calendar?
I move the consent calendar as read.
I'd second that.
Are there any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the consent calendar as read. Next, we'll move on to consideration of items that have been removed from the consent calendar. Councilmember Burke, since you asked that this be removed, can you please present the item?
Thank you, Mayor. So the item for consideration is to consider the approval of prime contract change order number 003 for the Wood Lake Nature Center building project in the amount of $662,545.37 to address delays resulting from federal grant compliance and other changes impacting the guaranteed maximum price. Consistent with City Council direction, Capital Improvement Plan and the city's comprehensive plan, staff have been working toward the construction of a new Wood Lake Nature Center building over the past few years. This includes removal of the current building and the construction of a new building with more programming, community, and exhibit space. Mortensen Construction was awarded the contract for construction manager at risk. A guaranteed maximum price, or GMP, was set on February 11th, 2025. Construction was expected to commence June 6, 2025. Due to delays in the release of federal grant funding, construction did not commence until September 2nd, 2025. The delay in construction requires a change order increasing the project cost by $519,635.74 and moving the substantial completion date to October 21st, 2026. In preparing for construction and breaking ground, it was identified that certain other changes impacting GMP were necessary. While finalizing permitting, Mortensen Construction identified an additional sewer availability charge due in the amount of $15,665.14. Procuring builder's risk insurance was identified to be cheaper through Mortensen Construction than on the open market, creating a change of $128,894.29. Asbestos was discovered in the piping under the building slab, requiring abatement for an additional cost of $2,516.01. A reduction in the number of trees being transplanted provided a savings of $4,257.81. In total, change order number 3 increased the GMP by $662,454.37 to $22,129,587.57. Does staff have any additional information on any of this?
Yes, Mayor, council members, we just wanted to provide a little bit more information around the context around the delays. So the delays were related to completing our National Environmental Protection Act review. We started the Environmental Protection Act review in April of 2024, and we initially ran into some delays with accessing the system. They switched to a new system right as we were starting to do that, and then once we got into the new system, our SAMS number, which is used for the grant system, was not working, so it took us a little while to figure that out with them. And then as we went through the process, we finished our environmental impact portion of the review around March, which identified no adverse environmental impacts to the site. But because the building is more than 50 years old, it triggered an architectural and archaeological review. And the architectural review came back saying that there needed to be additional review, which was unexpected. And each of those reviews requires a 30-day waiting period, followed by a determination of mitigation effects, which requires a 30-day waiting period, which stacked together gave us 3 extra months of what the time was. We were able to come up with a memorandum of agreement for what the mitigation was, which includes an exhibit with pictures of the building and a description of the importance of the building in the Nature Center movement, as well as a report that is now with the State Historical Society that people can look up to learn about the history of the building. And with those delays, we had to pay for Mortensen time on site during the delay, as well as moving the project later. We need to work through winter conditions, which extend the project timeline, adding more time there, as well as moving contractors around as well. We're happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Hugh Miller. Are there other questions? I did have one. So you were talking about that in order to keep it fairly close to being online, we'd have to work during the colder weather. And I know there was some discussion of, would it be better to pay overtime and hurry things up, or would it be better to work into the possible snow season? Can you address that, of which option we came up with?
Yeah, they looked at 3 options. One option was to just maintain the schedule as we previously had and shift everything. But with that shift, it would add a lot of cost, and that came back over $1 million in costs. And then they also looked at pouring the concrete foundation in the spring instead of in the fall to avoid winter conditions. And that also came back at over $1 million in excess cost. And so by speeding things up in the fall to finish the concrete footings, the cost impact came back to the $519,000. And right now, they're in the process of carrying that out to some extent, and things are going surprisingly well, thankfully.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Just one comment.
All right, Councilmember Burke.
And the reason why I wanted to give staff the opportunity is to give a more full account of what happened in case there were members of the public who have questions about it. And you very clearly explained what happened, and I want to thank you for that and for your perseverance and through all of it, so thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? And I believe at this point, a motion would be in order if we scroll down to the recommended action.
So the recommended action is to approve the prime contract change order number 003 for the Wood Lake Nature Center building project, and I make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I would just like to echo what Councilmember Burke said about the thorough discussion, or the thorough explanation. I appreciate getting all that out into the public record. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved item 7F. Next, we'll move on to item 9, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Hafer-Leary.
Thanks. This item is to consider the second reading and have a public hearing for an ordinance amendment to the Richfield City Code Appendix D, the fee schedule, related to building, planning, and zoning fees, and to hold a public hearing and second reading. City staff annually review fees to determine if charges for permits and services are appropriate. Staff want to ensure the costs of issuance for fees and permits reflect the staff time and costs related to performing the services associated with those fees. Staff also work to ensure that the costs for city services are in line with our peer communities, are not excessive, and are in compliance with state statute. Fees related to building permits, zoning, and other land use permits are established by Appendix D of the city's code, but unlike other fees included in the budget agenda item, charges for building, planning, and zoning are required to be set by ordinance and not by resolution. Does staff have anything to add prior to the public hearing? Okay. So we will now have a public hearing. If there's any comment on this item, any resident wishing to participate, please proceed to the podium one at a time. Provide your name and address prior to the comment. We will hear your comment. If you would like staff to follow up, please include your name and phone number or email on the sign-in document at the podium. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and as a reminder, we do not respond during a public hearing, but the questions raised may be addressed during the discussion. The public hearing for the fee schedule is now open if anybody would like to proceed and comment on this item. All right, I will move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have now closed the public hearing.
I move that we approve the attached transitory ordinance amendment to Richfield City Code Appendix D, the fee schedule related to building, planning, and zoning fees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the transitory ordinance amendment.
I move that we approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of that ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize summary publication. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved summary publication. Next, we'll move on to proposed ordinances, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Christensen for item 10A.
Thank you, Mayor. The item for consideration is to approve the second reading of an ordinance regulating the use and licensing of short-term rentals and related fees in Appendix D, and a resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance. The City Council approved a zoning ordinance restricting short-term rentals to a 5-night minimum at the May 27, 2025 City Council meeting. It was highlighted at that meeting that licensing regulations would be brought forth later in the summer. During review of the August 26, 2025 City Council meeting packet and prior to the meeting, the mayor asked for clarification of subsection 1199.05, subdivision 2 of the draft ordinance, which reads, license required. Property owners may receive a short-term rental license for one property in the city in addition to their homesteaded property or their primary place of business. Internal staff discussion revealed several different interpretations of the language, and it became clear the language needed to be clarified. During the August 26, 2025 City Council meeting, Council heard the first reading of the licensing ordinance, and after much discussion, approved the first reading, but asked that staff further discuss the implications of the proposed language in subsection 1199.05, subdivision 2, and bring back more information and recommendations. Concerns raised at that meeting included how many licenses should be issued to residents and non-residents, and is it legal to have different standards for residents and non-residents? Should current operators be restricted and thereby forced to reduce the number of properties they operate if the allowed license number is 1 or 2 and they own 3 properties? Staff capacity to research, monitor, and regulate licensed homesteaded properties owned by LLCs, individuals, and corporate owners. Since the August 26th meeting, staff have had internal conversations with the city attorney and are recommending an alternative approach for licensing short-term rentals they believe meets council objectives and allows staff to effectively manage the licensing process. With roughly 80 short-term rental operators currently in the city, staff recommended licensing no more than 100 short-term rental operators, regardless of where they live or how many properties they currently own. While licenses will be tracked for inspection and renewed annually, this recommendation eliminates the need to monitor/research and track property ownership and corporate/LLC status and the number of licenses per owner. This allows those currently operating to continue operating the number of properties they have and allows room for new STRs to be licensed. This ordinance, if approved, can always be revisited in the future for any adjustments needed based on concerns or issues that arise after licensure. 100 short-term rentals would be equal to less than 0.6% of the total city housing stock and less than 1% of single-family units. Council should discuss the recommended alternative of capping the maximum number of licenses and direct staff accordingly. The recommended action by motion is to approve the second reading of an ordinance regulating the use and licensing of short-term rentals and related fees in Appendix D, and to approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance. Does the staff have any recommendations or comments on this?
Mayor and council member, I do actually. One thing that could be considered to be added is fairly minor, and it is fairly standard in other ordinances that the city has, and that would be just to include that fees paid for the short-term license, initial application, or renewal fee would be non-refundable.
All right, thank you, Support Services Manager Anderson. I believe we're going to take these as 2 separate votes, so we will keep the resolution authorizing the summary publication for a separate motion. And Councilmember Christensen, correct me if I'm wrong, you've made the motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We're now open for discussion. Okay, Councilmember Hayford Leary.
Couple questions. So reading the ordinance, I understood this to be the limit on the number of properties, but as Councilmember Christensen read the staff report, use the term no more than 100 short-term rental operators, which implies that like one person could, it is a limit of 100 properties that are short-term rentals, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then there was a question raised in the open forum earlier about if there's any such limits on long-term rentals. Do we have any license cap like this for long-term rentals?
No.
No, we do not. Okay. Thanks. And then I will just say, in terms of my position, I'm not thrilled that we're including this limit because I think the 5-day was sufficiently unattractive to these owners to prevent this from really taking over our housing stock. But I think it's an acceptable compromise to make sure this doesn't explode. So I will be voting for this, although I think we should be open to raising that limit if there is demand to do so.
Thank you. And I looked up subdivision 1 to answer your question. Actually, subdivision 2 says the city will issue no more than 100 short-term residential rental licenses.
Yep, so per
So
property.
that would be per property. There was the question raised by staff about whether the license fee should be non-refundable. Councilmember Burke?
I'm fine with it being non-refundable. It makes sense.
City Attorney Teachin, do we need to do that as an amendment?
Mayor, Council, yes. If the council would like to add that, I would do a separate motion to amend the motion. Yes, so an amendment would be required on that.
Okay, Councilmember Burke?
And I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to amend the second reading of the ordinance to make the license fee non-refundable. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we have the ordinance as amended. I had a question about how we determined the number of short-term rentals we currently have. You said you think there's about 80. What was our method of determining that?
There was an opportunity for residents to self-identify whether or not they were running a short-term rental. And so names were collected and kept and recently shared in order to inform them of this potential ordinance being approved. I suspect much like we may find more, whether through complaints or police, fire referrals, things like that. But we know for sure we have 80.
So that brings me to my next question. Did you choose the number 100 because you think there probably was some underreporting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? So go ahead, Councilmember Burke.
Going to the basis for denial section, subdivision 4. I want to thank staff and the city attorney for modifying that as I had suggested. I'm still a little concerned about, I'm still confused about the wording of it, and I'll just read it out loud and perhaps that'll help. The applicant has a, city will not issue a license if the applicant has a felony conviction or a gross misdemeanor or misdemeanor conviction in the last 5 years. So the 5 years applies to all 3 of those, or is it only supposed to apply to gross misdemeanor or misdemeanor?
Mayor, Councilmember Burke, we revised that so that the intention was that it would apply to all
Okay,
of those, right?
because that's how I read it, so
Yes.
All right, excellent, thank you. And again, thank you for adding the operation of disorderly house. It seems to fit in pretty well. So, no other comment.
All right, any other questions? Councilmember Hayford Leary.
That raised a new, so just to clarify what was said, so a felony conviction more than 5 years old does not preclude you from having a license. Is that right? Okay.
Okay, and then you said in the staff report that we could revisit this if we decide that we need to have a smaller number of licenses?
Yeah, this has been a process in developing the ordinance, and there's been a lot of questions and concerns, and I think that coming back to you in 12 months with some data may be helpful in reassessing, and certainly ordinances can always be amended.
Okay, and so just to clarify, we took action earlier this year that said that it has to be a minimum of stay of at least 5 years. So all we are voting on tonight is the licensing standards. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, any other questions?
So if we said at 100 licenses now, and you said we could revisit it in a year, is that unusual to, for example, lower the number of licenses in the future? Is that difficult, or is that still something that we could do if we thought it was appropriate?
That would be something that the council could consider in the future. I think we would be looking at data to inform you as to how many we actually do end up licensing, any ordinance violations that may have arisen out of the properties. Data that we've asked people to submit for the renewal process, how many nights people are having, how many nights people are staying in properties, what are they taking in for income, so forth like that.
So we could, for example, if there's challenges with enforcing 100 licenses, another rationale would be, it's just such a challenge to monitor that many that would be a rationale also. Would that be a possibility also?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Councilmember Hayfield Leary.
Another follow-up for Councilmember Rourke's question. Just to clarify, are we obligated to keep licensing people that are in good standing? Like if you had 80
Yes.
licenses and they're all following all the rules, we can't reduce it to 70 and kick 10 people off. We're just frozen for new licenses.
Councilmember, I think it's not like zoning where you get grandfathered non-conforming use rights. I think with licensing, it's different legally. So I think that you legally could reduce the number, but once somebody has a license, I think there are other just more practical complications with reducing the number, which is not necessarily a legal question. That's something that I think that if the council wanted to do that, we'd have to look at the rationale for it and the circumstances surrounding, that kind of a decision.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious mainly because this issue came up with our tobacco licenses of picking a lower number. I don't know if that's a different category or just that was a decision we made to honor the existing licenses. But that does not require a response. We're not voting on the reduction. I was just curious.
All right, is there any further questions or is there any further discussion? All right, so right now the amendment, we have the motion as amended. So the motion on the floor is to approve the second reading of an ordinance regulating the use and licensing of short-term rentals and related fees in Appendix D, including an amendment to that to make it so that any fees that are paid are non-refundable. And we have a second. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have passed that. Now we'd move on to the second item.
Yes, this is to approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the summary publication. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to resolutions, and item 11A goes to Councilmember Burke. Thank you.
So the item for consideration is to adopt the attached resolutions establishing the 2026 preliminary budget and property tax levy, setting the date for the truth in taxation hearing, authorizing budget revisions, authorizing revision of the 2025 department budgets, and approving city fees for 2026. On August 12, 2025, a City Council special meeting was held for the purpose of presenting and discussing the 2025 revised/2026 proposed budget and 2026 preliminary property tax levy. At this meeting, staff presented to the City Council a preliminary gross tax levy of $31,693,830, including a levy for general fund operations of $25,420,333, a debt service levy of $3,946,030, an equipment and technology levy of $1,682,308 and an Economic Development Agency levy of $645,160. The proposed city levy increase presented at the August 12, 2025 work session was 5.97%. During discussion, City Council directed that the Public Works budget be increased by $55,000. The increase will fund asphalt trail maintenance, stop sign replacement, warning sign replacement, and forestry and tree planting. The budget increase will be funded by the property tax levy. With these stated changes, staff is now presenting to the City Council a preliminary tax levy of $31,749,380. This includes a levy for general fund operations of $25,475,883, a debt service levy of $3,946,030, an equipment and technology levy of $1,682,308, and an economic development agency levy of $645,160. The proposed city levy is an increase of 6.16% over the 2025 levy. The HRA levy of $742,230, a 3% increase, has been approved by the HRA and is recommended to be ratified as part of this approval. The combined city and HRA levy increase is 6.08%. Once the preliminary levy is approved, it may be further reduced at a later City Council meeting, but it legally cannot be increased over the preliminary approved amount. In addition, the city must certify its proposed property tax levy for payable year 2026 to the county auditor and set a date for its Truth in Taxation public meeting on or before September 30th, 2025. The Truth in Taxation public meeting must be held between November 25th and December 30th, 2025, and must occur at 6 p.m. or later. The city's Truth in Taxation public meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 25th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. At the August 12th, 2025 City Council's special meeting, staff also presented the proposed city fees for 2026. Staff is asking council to approve a resolution setting city fees for 2026. A separate transitory ordinance related to building permits, zoning, and other land use permits fees established by Appendix D of the city's code are included in a separate report, as they are set by ordinance, not resolution. Staff have anything to add to that lengthy list?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. So each year as we prepare to bring this recommended preliminary levy to the council, I survey cities that are comparable to our city in population and tax base. And I got responses from 11 of those cities. They average a preliminary levy increase of 8.4%, and it ranged from a high of 14.92% to a low of 4.98%. And again, this compares to our recommended preliminary levy of 6.08% for Richfield's combined levy. You know, this is not a perfect measure, but I do think that the levy increase is a good measure in that it's measuring the cost, the annual cost increase of delivering the majority of the city's services. Finally, I want to thank our budget, cash, and debt manager, Steve McDaniel, for his good work in leading the budget process. He started just as we were kicking off the budget and really had to hit the ground running. I also want to thank all the directors, and they have staff that work very hard on the budget for a long time. I mean, we start this in May. And finally, I want to thank the council because it's your vision and values that guide us in this work and has led us to this recommendation tonight. And we're available for questions.
Is there a motion? Thank you.
Yes, I make the motion to adopt the attached resolutions establishing the 2026 preliminary budget and property tax levy, setting the date for the Truth in Taxation hearing, authorizing budget revisions, authorizing revision of the 2025 department budgets, and approving city fees for 2026. I do make that motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We're now open for discussion. Are there any questions or discussion? Go ahead, Councilmember Burke.
This is my first time going through this, and I want to thank staff, also reiterate the thanks for the hard work and making it simple for someone like me to understand. So thank you all for doing that. Thank you, sir.
I also had a question about the audit, because normally we have the audit numbers before we do the budgeting. So if you could go through the timeline for the audit and all of that whole process. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And, due to staff turnover, we are late again getting out the audit. It's the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR is the new acronym. And that, we got an extension from the state to submit it on by September 30th. I just met and did the exit interview with the auditors today, and we'll be presenting it to the council on October 14th.
Okay, so if it's going to be presented on October 14th, the way it works, we do the preliminary budget now and set that levy, and we can always lower it, or down the road, we might have to make a revision. Can you explain that process if something comes up in the audit that would cause us to make a change?
Yes. So the staff were the ones that made the most of the adjusting journal entries. So they are in the budget documents that you have already reviewed. There were very few adjusting journal entries that the auditors found after we were presenting the budget to you. So there should not be, because of the audit adjusting journal entries, there should not be a need for further revisions to the budget.
So the audit will come in the first October meeting?
Yes, it is completed, but they will present it to you. It is completed. There's some statistical sections that they are working on, but the numbers are completed.
So we will meet the deadline for the state to get it in?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
That will be submitted by September 30th, and then we'll be presenting it to the council on October 14th. Thanks for the clarification.
All right, thank you. And then in addition, I want to thank all of the staff for all their hard work on this, and I was very pleased to see when we were setting the fees that there is a recreation department deposit that has to be put down, so if damage is done or a huge mess is left behind, people would lose that damage deposit. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think that was a good change that was in response to things that were happening.
Yes, we had strengthened those permits to put in language that they, for example, could not park on the grass at Betts Park, but folks still were not abiding by it, and so now they must pay a damage deposit up front, and if they don't abide by our rules for the rental, then we will keep the damage deposit.
All right, thank you. And I know it came up in other areas where people left a huge mess and the neighbors came in and cleaned it up, but they shouldn't have to be doing that, and so I was really glad that we have that in place. Any other comments or questions? So we have the motion before us to adopt the attached resolutions establishing the 2026 preliminary budget and property tax levy, setting the date for the truth in taxation hearing, and authorizing budget revisions, and authorizing revision of the 2025 department budgets and approving the city fees for 2026. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? And we have approved those. Next, we'll move on to item 11B, and that is going to Councilmember Coleman Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. The item for consideration is to approve a resolution updating the City Council Rules of Procedure and Decorum. Per Chapter 3, Section 3.03, Rules of Procedure and Decorum of the Richfield Charter Council has discretion in determining its own rules and order of business at regular meetings. The Richfield City Council Rules of Procedure and Decorum have been updated and adopted by resolution by sitting city councils on 4 occasions since July 23rd of 2001, with the most recent update by resolution on February 14th, 2017. At the August 12th, 2026 council meeting, council and staff reviewed language changes to the rules of procedure and decorum. Council directed staff to include the hats off to hometown hits item under the council discussion section of the agenda, along with the liaison reports item, allowing for brief updates from council members on their respective commission assignments. The changes requested by council on April 8th, 2025 regarding the agenda order of business, section 5, agenda subdivision 3 are included in this final revision. Council provided staff direction on the specific sections and subdivisions summarized below. The revisions are included in the final revisions of the rules of procedure and decorum and are included in red in the attached document. Subsection 4, subdivision 2, appealing the ruling of the presiding officer, amended the language to remove the provisions that limit participation in the appeal discussion and aligning with Sturgis Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. Section 5, subdivision 4, varying order of business. The presiding officer may vary the order of business with council input. Section 5, subdivision 6, consent agenda, clarified current language regarding removal of an item for further council discussion from the consent calendar. Section 5, subdivision 7, items not on the agenda, clarified current language regarding the addition of items to the agenda with a majority vote of the council and adding additional language to include the council may not amend the agenda to include any item that would require a public notice or hearing. Section 5, subdivision 9, A through D, public participation, clarified and updated current language regarding public participation during council meetings. Council increased public comment time to 30 minutes with a 3-minute limit per speaker, with council consensus to extend time. Including language regarding public comment submitted via email. It included language to update addresses, to update address to city of residence. Subsection 6, subdivision 3, excused from voting. Language updated to include language referencing council member participation in the discussion if they are abstaining from the vote or either by unanimous consent of the other members present or due to abstention as required by law. Section 7, subdivision 3, rules of decorum discussion, updated language noting the mayor or any city council member may bring a motion to limit discussion on any question. Section 7, subdivision 9, rules of decorum conduct. City Attorney Tejan clarified the decorum document and focused on the council's conduct rather than the general public's conduct. Section 8, enforcement of decorum. City Attorney Tejan provided some context for certain enforcement and situations that may arise. And the motion before us is to approve a resolution updating the city council rules of procedure and decorum. Is there any staff discussion?
We're available for questions.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And it was pointed out to me that the discussion at the council meeting, we have a slight error in the executive summary. It was on August 12th, 2025, which I think people figured out by context since it's would have been happening in the future otherwise, but thank you for pointing that out, Councilmember Christensen. All right, are there any questions or discussion?
Right, yeah.
All right, I would like to thank everybody that participated in the process. I know that it took a long time to go through it, and it was a very thorough discussion when we went through it the last time. So thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, we have the motion before us. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have passed the resolution. Next, we'll move on to other business. Item 12A, Councilmember Hayford-Leary.
This item is to approve resolution of participation in a private paid family and medical leave plan through MetLife and establish premium sharing for the 2026-2027 plan year. Beginning in January 2026, the state of Minnesota will implement a new law, the Paid Family and Medical Leave Program. The program provides paid time off for workers experiencing a serious health condition, caring for a family member or newborn, participating in qualifying military-related activities, or addressing specific personal safety concerns. The program covers nearly all employers and employees across the state, including full-time, part-time, temporary, and most seasonal workers. Eligible former employees may also apply for benefits within 26 weeks of separation from employment. The City of Richfield, in alignment with other municipalities, has evaluated two options for compliance with the new state requirements: either enrolling in the statewide Minnesota Paid Leave Program or contracting with an approved private vendor. After careful consideration, staff recommends pursuing an agreement with MetLife, an approved external vendor. This option is more cost-effective, shifts administrative and compliance responsibilities to the vendor, and is expected to offer a higher level of service for both the city and its employees. After evaluating options, staff believes the vendor MetLife offers the best mix of services at less cost for several key reasons. First reason, MetLife currently administers paid leave in numerous other states and municipalities. They offer the city a guaranteed rate of 0.759% of employees' total wages, compared to 0.88% under the state plan. Since this percentage is split 50-50 between the city and the employees, both benefit from cost savings. Second reason, staff provided MetLife committed to processing leave payments within 5 to 7 days after receiving leave application materials. All customer service inquiries related to Minnesota paid leave will be handled directly by MetLife. Third reason, the city was able to secure this lower rate by bundling additional related benefits. Richfield will transition to MetLife as its vendor for short-term disability processing as well as long-term disability coverage, reducing administrative costs and streamlining the transition for both employer and employee. Richfield intends to retain its self-insured short-term disability plan and maintain the biweekly hourly accrual benefit for that. As defined in the Minnesota Paid Leave Program, lower income earners will receive a higher percentage of wage replacement, while higher income earners will receive a lower percentage. As the processing vendor, MetLife will also provide human resources with guidance on how much short-term disability an employee can use from their bank to achieve up to 100% wage replacement. Staff are recommending the city accept the MetLife proposal and proceed to next steps, including passing the attached resolution so that MetLife can administer the paid leave program by January 1st, 2026. Does staff have anything to add prior to me making a motion?
My medical leave with MetLife, and the second portion of that is to establish the premium sharing in 26 and 27. Once approved, staff will work with NFP, our broker, and MetLife to submit an application to the state as approved. Thank you.
Okay, I will move that we approve a resolution of participation in a private paid family medical leave plan through MetLife and establishing premium sharing for the 2026-2027 plan year.
I second both of those.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further questions for Assistant City Manager Tongban? Right, thank you for your work on this. I appreciate it. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We have passed the item. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the City Manager's report. City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I summarize the comments from last week's speaker, I do want to clarify that I'll use the name that they provide on the card. So using only a first name if that's what they provide, or both names if they provided that. So Candace spoke at our last meeting with concerns about the proposed ordinance change on storage containers, and that the current ordinance was not equitably enforced. She is correct that our staff made a mistake on it. They were new to their job, and so, you know, we apologized at the time as soon as we discovered the error. And that's all I have for tonight's report.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? Next, we'll move on to council discussion, the Hats Off to Hometown Hits. Councilmember Burke.
For those of you who attended PennFest, I hope you had a good time, because I certainly did. And I want to thank everyone who works on PennFest, and want to thank city staff for their participation also.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
I was also just going to say PennFest was great, and thank you to everyone who was involved. Another great year.
Thank you. Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, just a reminder that the farmer's market is still going on down at Veterans Park for a few more weeks yet, so everybody participate in that.
Thank you. Councilmember Coleman Woods.
I want to thank everybody who has been who's reached out to us in the last couple of weeks. My husband had a life-changing hospitalization, and so I appreciate everybody on city staff and on the council here for backing me up and covering for me on all of the things that I've missed in the last 2 weeks, and I'm deeply grateful for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. So Councilmember Christensen mentioned the farmer's market, and when I was at the farmer's market, several people came up and gave feedback on the city. And one thing that I noticed is there seems to be a number of people that are deeply grateful to our city forester for their help with diseased trees in the emerald ash borer situation. So I wanted to do a hats off to City Forester Joe Clark, because I heard about it at PennFest, I heard about it at the farmer's market, so a lot of people are very happy, and so I want to extend that hats off. Next, the city is working on getting public engagement about 3 different sidewalk proposals, and so they've been doing pop-up events, and there's one other opportunity to give feedback, and that is at the open house that's going to be here at City Hall on the 3 sidewalk projects, and it's October 1st from 4:30 to 6:30. And I want to thank all of the residents that came out to the pop-ups. We've been having some really good conversations. We've had 4 of them so far. And so this final open house will be on all 3 projects, so you can come and talk to people and give your feedback at that point. And finally, I wanted to say the Richfield Foundation is in the middle of accepting grant proposals. So if you, I'm going to pull it up on my phone here so I don't have to try and memorize all of this. So I'm going to read it from them. The 2025 annual grant applications are being accepted through October 31st. Grants typically range from $500 to $2,000. Every successful proposal must meet the basic criteria of benefiting people in the community and fit with the foundation's vision, which is that a Richfield that thrives through community connection, opportunities, and support. So you can apply for grants by going to www.richfieldfoundationmn.org, and that's through October 31st. So thank you all, and we have completed our business, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have adjourned the meeting. Thank you. That was a big agenda. I'll take it.